2024. What a year. I wrote a lot of words this year, and I got a short story published this year. So if you're curious to see a writer's wrapped for the full year of 2024, buckle up. We're going to break it down month by month, manuscript by manuscript, and then we're going to get into my big plans for 2025. If you're new here, I'm Ari. I'm an aspiring author, and on this channel we talk about everything writing, reading, and overthinking. And if you're not new here, welcome back. I'm so glad to see you. We're gonna get into all of the projects, all of the words that I wrote for 2024. All of the projects I'm gonna be discussing today, I spoke about in a linked video. So if you're curious about the projects, just go ahead and check that video out. Let's go ahead and get into the 2024 breakdown. So let's start in January 2024, the very beginning of the year. I have my computer here. I'm going to tell you all of the word breakdowns. Honestly, January was a wonderful month for me. I wrote 24,888 words of my mobster conman inspired fantasy novel, Honey and I. And in addition to writing almost 25K in January, I had submitted a short story to the Writers Playground competition in, I think, September. And I found out that my short story, Hershey's Kiss, got published in the Writers Playground 7th Challenge. I've linked the short story below if you'd like to check it out. Then let's move on to February because woo, what was I doing in February? I literally did my own NaNoWriMo in February. I don't know what was going on. So in February, after I had drafted nearly 25,000 words of Honey and I decided that I needed to shelve it. And I spoke about this a little bit in my previous video, which I will link as well. I was just missing a lot of major plot conflict. So I decided I would just shelve that story and I would come back to it after I let it simmer a little bit. And I decided in February that I would pick up a story that I had started drafting in summer of 2023. After I had let that draft sit for several months, I had figured out this new twist for the story. So in February, I pivoted to my eco-fantasy novel, Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. I don't know what was going on, but I wrote a whopping 51,098 words in February of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. And this was my draft 0. It was messy and chaotic, but I figured out this reframe and then the story just poured out of me. And February was one of those months this year that I lived for as a writer. You're just in this creative space and things are flowing and it just it felt really, really good. March. I wrote so much in February that I think in March I had decided that I kind of would be okay with slowing down a little bit. And I remember thinking, okay, I've done a ton of first drafting in the past several months. And I had this overwhelming feeling of okay, I can write a first draft, no problem, but I really want to get a draft to the next stage, to the revision level. I had drafted What If We Broke, which is a contemporary fiction book, in December 2023. I decided in March, I needed to get a project from first draft stage to a more concrete revision stage. And so I decided I would use What If We Broke to do that. So this is the What If We Broke draft. And you can see I have writing all over it, annotated. I have all of these sticky notes in here too. So a lot of March was going through this manuscript, reading it, annotating it, coming up with a revision plan. I also tried out some new scenes. So for March, I wound up having a lower word count, but I wrote 5,049 words for What If We Broke in March. Yes, it's lower than January and February. I also think my word counts in January and February were absolutely insane and not normal. But March definitely I had switched gears and it was revision season. So it was to be expected that the word count would drop. In April, I had found out that I was going to be starting a new job in May. I spent a bit of time kind of flip-flopping between Honey and I, trying to rework the major plot conflict of Honey and I, and then working on Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call and trying to work out some of the plot holes for that story. I don't exactly remember why I decided okay, I'm gonna stop working on What If We Broke. I think I had just gotten really intimidated by the revision process, and I think I had kind of re-outlined the novel, but I wanted a little bit of a break from that story. You can see in the end of the year wrap up, I move around a lot with my drafts. So I was kind of switching off between Honey and I and Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call in April. So I wrote a total of 3,204 words for Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call and 2,447 words for Honey and I, for a grand total of 5,651 words in April. I think I wasn't being super targeted. I wasn't being super focused in April. And I had wished a little bit that I had just continued working on What If We Broke, but it is what it is. Let's move on to May. So May was slow because I started a brand new job and I did not have the emotional or mental bandwidth to work on so many things while feeling like I needed to start a new job and focus on that, be good at that. So I decided I would work a little bit on Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call, but May I was not writing consistently at all. So I got my lowest word count of the year thus far in May at 1,227 words for working on rewriting certain sections of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call for draft 0. Now June is where we start to pick up again. I think ending a job and then starting a new job, you can kind of see the dip of like, okay, like these life things happened and so my writing slowed down. But June, I felt like I was starting to get the hang of things at my new job. And I think Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call was kind of like nagging at me. I still had that feeling of like, okay, I can do a first draft. Like I'm great at first drafts, but I need to get a story through revision. Like that is the hurdle that I need to pass in order to like level up my writing. Like I need to get through the revision trenches. And so I decided I'm going to do it with Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. I think it just wasn't working for me with What If We Broke. And I wanted to let that story sit a little. So I was like, okay, revision, Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. Let's write a dialogue first draft. And if you don't know what a dialogue first draft is, it's essentially where you take a book and you rewrite it like a screenplay, but you're purely focusing on dialogue. So in June, we see an uptick in word count again. I wrote a total of 14,638 words in June for Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call for the dialogue first draft. And I was feeling really good. This was the first time I'd ever done a dialogue first draft and I was so into it. It just peeled back so many layers for me for my story and I loved it. In July, I continued writing my dialogue first draft and I started this YouTube channel, which I'm so glad I did. I wrote 11,897 words of the Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call dialogue first draft. And I also finished that dialogue first draft. So I think it came out to be about 25,000 words total over the course of those 2 months for the entire dialogue first draft. Overall, for June, July, we're picking up word count again. And then August hit. And honestly, August and September, I was dealing with a lot of personal stuff. But before life happened, I had actually managed to write 2,933 words of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. And it was my like revision plan. I was reverse outlining. I was figuring out plot holes, trying to figure out how I wanted to rewrite the story. And then unfortunately, my dog passed away really suddenly in the beginning of August. It was really a struggle for me to like get out of bed and show up for work and do daily tasks like clean the apartment. I was focused on getting through the days more than anything else. So for August and September, I'm giving myself the grace. I was struggling a lot. I wrote like 2,933 words in August before everything happened. And I think I wrote like 500 words in September. Like they were just really rough months. In October, I finally started to feel like I could maybe start kind of getting back to my life. And so I started posting back on YouTube. I started brainstorming for a new project, which is my contemporary fiction novel, Money Piece, which I spoke about in Preptober. I'll link the video. In October, for me, it was a project that I really wanted to get started because I needed something fun and I needed something entertaining in my life after having gone through like a really dark couple of months. So at the end of October, I started drafting Money Piece and I wrote 3,348 words in October. And then came NaNoWriMo. November. And so in November, I wrote 28,939 words of Money Piece. And now we are in December. So the day that I'm filming this, it is December 18th. So I still have honestly quite a bit of time left in December, and it's also kind of like slow time. I have several days off. I'm gonna be able to like really focus on writing. And also something happens in winter where it's like cozy season and all I wanna do is like sit down and write. So in December, I decided to shelve Money Piece, which I discussed in this video here, but I had written 1,433 words of Money Piece in December. And then I decided to write a clean first draft of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. So far, I've written 5,261 words of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call, but I'm honestly hoping to get that word count up quite a bit for the end of the month. I'm drafting slowly, but I think I can get to like at least 10K by the end of the month. So between Money Piece and Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call, I've drafted 6,694 words in December so far. Are you ready to hear the 2024 grand total word count? I wrote 156,499 words this year. I made some figures, of course, because I have to. So here you can see is the word count by month. So you can see there really is kind of like this ebb and flow, especially when like major life things kind of happen. So January, February, I had really high word counts. April and May, I ended a job and I started a new job, and then June, July it started to pick up again, and then I was dealing with a lot of life things in August and September, so you can see the dip again, and then slowly October, November, December we're kind of like increasing the word count again. And the breakdown by manuscript, you can see here, the manuscript that I worked on by far the most this year was Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. I wrote about like equal amounts of Money Piece and Honey and I, and the manuscript I worked on the least this year was What If We Broke. So my year was pretty much dominated by Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. I like to say I wrote like one novel and two half novels, because I wrote half of Honey and I and I wrote half of Money Piece. So I guess I kind of like math way, I wrote like two novels if we're adding like 1 + 1/2 + 1/2. Either way, like I wrote a lot. It's really funny because I started summing the word counts together and I was shocked. When I tell you, I was shocked. I felt like compared to 2023, I'd barely written anything. Before I had looked at the numbers, like if you had come to me and asked me like, oh, like, did you write a lot this year? I'd be like, I feel like I barely did anything, because I had spent several months, like April, May, August, September, October, in very, very low word count months, but actually reflecting and looking back at all my writing, and it's so helpful to like keep track of all of this stuff. It made me realize that like writing really comes in waves, especially for me. And it's very clear that I have a short attention span and I like to switch between projects frequently. Like I worked on 4 manuscripts this year. Like that is excessive. Some months you may be sprinting through, and some months it might feel like it's barely a crawl. And that is okay, because progress is progress, whether it's a 50K month or it's literally a 0 month. You're still making progress and it still adds up. Like I would not have thought that I had wrote that much this year. And I do want to say, like, yes, I'm flashing up these word counts. Yes, it's great. It means I spent a lot of time writing this year, but I will also say word count is not everything. It is really important to remember, like, don't aim for words for the sake of words. Aim for words for the sake of your art. Let's go over the things that I'm most proud of that I did in 2024 this year. Some of the things that I'm most proud of in terms of writing was I got my short story published. It was the first short story I had ever submitted. I totally submitted it thinking like, oh, like, might as well just like try, but like I'm not expecting anything. And to have it published and to have it recognized was just like such an immensely good feeling that made me feel like, okay, like I'm doing something right and I'm gonna keep going. 2, I'm really proud of myself that I kept writing even though this year really got the best of me. I started a brand new job this year. I went through some major life changes. I lost a family member. Like, you know, if you're not a dog person, if you're not an animal person, I'm sorry, but it was a really difficult summer. I'm really proud of myself that I let myself go through that period of just like, okay, we're just gonna like do the bare minimum and just try to get through the day. After I'd given myself some time, like I felt like I could get back to it, and I'm really happy that I was able to, and I continued following my passion even when life was kind of trying to get the better of me. Sorry for the sappiness. And in 2024, some other things that I'm really happy about is I've read 27 books this year. I really wanted to hit 30. That was my goal. I think I still have some time to like maybe hit 28, 29 because I'm almost done with an audiobook and there's still like almost 2 weeks left of December. So I'm really happy that I got to read that much in 2024. I'm gonna link my Storygraph account down below if you're interested in checking out what books I read this year. Go ahead, feel free to friend me on Storygraph. Also, something that I'm grateful for in 2024 is all of the lovely AuthorTube friends that I've made. And I am so proud of the community that we've built here. I can't believe that there are over 500 of you already. It's so wild to me. I'm so grateful for each and every single one of you. Let's set some goals for 2025. These are my top 3 goals for 2025. 1, finish a clean draft of Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call. It's time to polish the story into something I'm proud of. I spent so much of 2024 writing first drafts, or coming up with revision plans, but I really want to get through those revision trenches. I want to end up with a manuscript that I'm proud of, that I feel like is book shaped. And my second writing goal for 2025 is to get Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call to beta readers. I've sent a couple of scenes of Money Piece and Pretend the Earth Doesn't Call to my critique partners, Becca and Mick, who are literally the best. I love them. But I want a full book to be submitted to beta readers in 2025 so they can give me feedback on the manuscript as a whole. That's a huge goal for me for 2025. My third and last goal for 2025 is I want to try to finish drafting Honey and I love that story so much, and it's been a year in January since I've drafted it, and I think I'm ready to build in that main conflict and beef that story up. So those are my 3 goals for 2025, and for all of those goals I'll be documenting everything here. So writing vlogs, craft tips, the unfiltered and raw chaos that is my mind and the emotional process of writing. So if you're interested in following, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You made 2024 so much better, and I'm so excited to see where 2025 takes us. And let me know in the comments down below, what are you proud of that you accomplished in 2024, and what are your goals for 2025? As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.